It's nothing against glasses, it's the up down. I don't have like actual prescriptions. Yeah. Years. Yeah. It just doesn't work. I can't see anything and I'm confused. Start this meeting in 3, 2, officially 5:17 p.m. Anybody have any changes to the current agenda? We're welcoming Leslie online, I believe, and that's, hi Leslie. If there are no changes, we can move on to accept minutes. I mean, the agenda, sorry. I second, great. Great. Discussion on the select board meeting. I thought Allison was amazing.
I thought Steve was amazing.
Super excited for all of our attendance there that day. I thought it went pretty well.
I thought you both did a great job.
And Mark as well.
Yeah, and Mark too.
Oh, I didn't do much. I was
Pam as well. Pam, everybody. It was a great team effort.
Yeah.
I will say that was the first time I ever been to a select board meeting. I'm happy I did it. And it'll make it easier the next time.
I do want to share that, I kind of felt I knew where the board was, but I was really taken back when Matt told the story about registering his child for swimming.
Yeah.
That really kind of hit home that, you know, when the needs are still.
And they seemed happy that things were moving forward more than possibly. I mean, it takes time, obviously. And I think we're ready to build in 6 months. So just keep going.
I had it all planned out that I was gonna thank everyone on behalf of the committee, thank all the selectmen for appointing us, because we were all enjoying it. I never really knew when was a good time to stand up and talk to them, and they didn't say, are there any other comments from any of the committee members? So
Yeah.
I just.
So it's definitely.
But it was a good opportunity to thank them for at least appointing us.
Yeah.
I didn't say it, sorry.
Is that the way most of the select board meetings go? Kind of like.
Well, the first item was really giving the report, right? Which I thought was very successful. And then the second part, I feel like Mark had pretty much put in the verbiage
Sure.
to help the process happen.
Yeah, thank you.
No, some of the things are more controversial, but that night, the things more controversial.
I kind of wanted to stick around, but
But like, look, it's good support from the,
is there always such a large police presence?
I think it depends what the item is.
Okay.
They had something on the agenda, fine.
Right. All good.
So I guess what does that mean for next steps?
I guess that's why we're here.
I didn't necessarily know how to encapsulate that on the agenda.
Right.
It's a very light agenda, so we can figure out where we go from here. I think that's
You've
Mark.
been here before?
Yeah,
What
so
would
I've
your
got
recommendation
the slides prepared to talk about how we get through this next phase of the project. At the appropriate time, I will share those and we can kind of workshop together how it looks, what we need to add or change from it, and talk a little bit about next, the immediate next step. Okay.
Write it down right now. So.
I think.
Are we there?
Is that?
Excellent. All right, very good.
We signed our contract with Mark and he's been retained for the next section.
There we go, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. All right. First, I'm just gonna put it in presentation mode so it's a little easier to read. But what I've listed here is, here we are, September 16th. So what I'm going to try to do for this next phase of the project is every time we have a meeting and there's development of material, we captured in a slide deck like this, and so we'll build on it. So there'll be a chronology of all of our work as we go through the process. We can all look back at that, so I'll send them out at the conclusion to what we presented. Okay. So the tasks that I've listed are 9 tasks, and they probably don't capture every aspect that we need to do. So again, that's why it's important for us to have a conversation. What do we need to add to this? When do we need to make sure that we're doing certain things through this? But there are really 2 basic aspects of this next phase, maybe 3. The first is to understand what it is that we want to design. We've all had a lot of conversations and we've asked the community, what are all the different elements that we want to include in a potential community center? What different activities might occur as partnerships, but what are the ones that we want to also try to consider as part of a building? And so in order to do that, we have a couple of things that we need to do. One, we've started some of the tours to see what other communities are doing and what spaces that they have to support the different programs they have. So, but I think we need to pick that up and see a few other examples that have more comprehensive facilities to understand from them the opportunities and challenges that they have in working with us. Every square foot that you add to the community's inventory that then requires operating maintenance, and so not only the capital cost to construct, that's also considered. So we want to see more examples, and we've talked about a few of those, and we can talk a little bit more in a minute here on what ones we want to potentially schedule that we haven't seen yet. The other thing that I'll bring are precedent examples from other community centers that we don't necessarily have an opportunity to go visit that I have seen and that get some information on. And so the idea is to learn as much as we can from everyone else. We start to dig in and look at designing the facility for Topsham. The second part of that is once we kind of look at that, then we'll start digging into, okay, what are the different spaces that we want and how large are they and what do they need to include? Again, we've touched on that a little bit in the surveys, but it's really take a deeper dive in that and understand what they are and how they would function for your community center. And no, that's all right.
Fantasy football.
Yeah.
Monday night.
Oh, all right, just learned something new about him.
Then the next piece, as we've talked, that we really can't design a facility until we know the site that it's going to be on. We really need to understand that site. That site selection has to happen. And so that part, I'll actually open it up. Mark, I think is sort of helping to guide some of the conversations around site selection. I provided some information that we're actually starting to assist this week in that. So tomorrow we're meeting, I think tomorrow, what's there? That we're actually meeting and reviewing a few sites. And I'll just show initially what we look at when we look at sites. And the first item we'll call it community values. And those are sort of things that fall outside the rest of the criteria that I'm describing. Community values are the things that you folks find to be important. And sometimes it has nothing to do with anything that's on here, that it has to have high visibility. Like in a community value. And so that might be part of the location of it. And so, but there's sort of that aspect of it. We oftentimes in our engineering look at the parcel structure. There's sort of that physical aspect of the parcel itself, its size, its shape. So if it's long and narrow, that may be a different opportunity than, and its sort of aspect ratio is a little more regular. Slope on the site obviously impacts a lot of what we can do on it and what we need to do to mitigate aspects of the slope. And then potential for expansion. Is the parcel slightly landlocked? Are there opportunities to acquire land in the future adjacent to it? So that aspect of expandability of the parcel. So that's kind of the parcel structure. The next one we look at is the soils. A lot of what we have to do to support building is digging into understanding the soil. There's any ledge costs money to remove. Drainage on the site itself, where does the water flow across the site and where does it collect and where does it drain to? which impacts wetlands. Not always, the two aren't always sort of directly synonymous, but wetlands are protected, and so we want to know if there are any wetlands on a site. Environmental impacts, there could be other aspects, not just wetlands. There are more sensitive wetlands, such as vernal pools, that we have to look at carefully as well. And then if there's been any prior contamination to the site that requires, that would also be something we want to look into. The next category we look at is transportation. So we typically look at anything that is above a 45-mile-per-hour arterial route, usually is going to be a little more difficult to get in and out of. So vehicle access can be attributed to sort of the speed of the arterial route, but also potentially looking at what are the opportunities for access for vehicles onto and off of the site. Off-site traffic improvements, if you think they're going to be required, sometimes those can start to drive up the cost. And so that's such as if we needed to add a signal or we need to do other things in that regard, this can add costs quite a bit. And then are there sometimes consideration of sidewalks or pedestrians to get to the location as well? Fifth category is utilities. So power lines and down the list, three-phase power. So when we start thinking about a facility this size, it's almost going to be necessary to provide three-phase power for some of the different systems that we're going to be required to run it. Is there on-site water, or is it town water? Is there sewer? Again, on-site or town, natural gases. So it's all those aspects of utilities to and from the site. And then location, which starts to talk about some of its connection to the rest of the community and how it integrates with the community. So it's proximity to density, which then provides a smart growth, it's called, but that's the idea that you're densifying density and allowing other areas to maintain some degree of sort of undeveloped nature in the community, but also density is also good because that means that you could potentially have access to the facility conveniently for people without having to travel great distances to get to it. So, and you also potentially are connected closer to utilities if you're in a proximity to first responders. So that's always an issue that we look at. If it's an emergency or something, is it accessible to first responders? How long does it take them to get there? Proximity to community facilities. So there's synergies by having it closer to if it's programming helpful next to the library, is it have it right there or somewhat close proximity? Is there public transportation available, and is the areas those are kind of issues. So again, before we and I'll just what we oftentimes do, not that you can read this, but what we do is we take all those criteria and then we put the different sites and we sort of use a rubric where we have could be a 1 to 5 in terms of the grading criteria, and then we have the potential to weight it. Some criteria is more important than others, so you won't necessarily get all weighting. But anyway, we come up with a ranking sheet like this that just helps guide the conversation about which site is sort of a selected or the preferred site and why it's preferred. So it's a tool to use in that conversation. Before we go back to this one, Mark, is there anything you want to add to the site selection?
I'll give you guys a choice, and then a little more info first. So tomorrow, Mark Payment, we're going to go look at 3 potential sites, get his input, because he may tell us, say one of them is just absolutely not going to work because it's got what, I don't think it's got wetlands, but there may be other reasons. You look at the soil and say this is and then Thursday night, we're going to have an executive session with the select board to play over the 3 sites and get their instruction and permission to make some offer. Maybe offer is not the right word yet. Initial discussions, I guess, would be a better word. So if we've talked about a little bit some of the sites at this meeting in the past, but if we want to go more detailed tonight, what I propose is we wait for the end of the meeting and do an executive session, which is one of the permissible reasons for executive session is to acquire interest in real estate, and all these would require getting interest of one sort or another in real estate. So if you want us to do that more, we'll wait for the end of the meeting. Okay. Good. Yeah.
step back a little bit. So site selection, once we have an idea of what the site is, then we can start laying out those pieces that we all talked about are important to consider in the development of the community center. And then, so we'll develop a site concept plan, which approximates where we would put the different items that we need on the site. Then we develop a floor plan, concept layout. So it starts to assemble these in what starts to look like the organization of the building itself. Then we actually look at proposed building systems in addition to the spaces. We want to know how we're anticipating constructing the facility. And so with all of that, with a potential building concept and with a floor plan and with a site plan, then we can actually start to assign costs. That's sort of the next piece. So we would develop an opinion of probable costs. And we would first look at the construction costs, the facility stuff. Then we look at the cost associated with that required as part of building it. And then in addition to that, we know those, we can look at the operating costs if we understand what the potential operating costs are. Any different models for how we did both the initial costs and to operate it. So that then provides, I think, this sort of next aspect of okay, what is it? How much is it going to cost? And where I think is what we're all trying to figure out during this phase of the what else that I haven't included here that I'm curious to understand at what point during this process are we thinking that we would engage community stakeholders? This was actually mentioned during this select board meeting. Well, so I'm anxious to understand. And are there other steps here that we don't that you want to make sure we?
I think we have to do all these anyway, so I don't think anything should hold us up to move forward. So obviously, there's other steps involved.
Are there, at what point do we want to reach back out and engage the community? And how do you folks see that happening, or how do you?
Anytime money becomes involved in expenses.
I think even before you get to that, you want to do some type to get the input to bring people together to give them a charrette.
Yeah,
It's a planning. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's very good, Pam. So what it does is essentially it's a planning exercise that you're putting ideas together, and oftentimes it helps we start to think about diagramming how it might start to come together and be organized, but it's a planning exercise that engages lots of people. So instead of me running off my desk and tracing something out on paper, it's working as a collective group to develop ideas.
Yeah.
You might have 4 or 5 designs or concepts of other communities that we have nothing to do with. And you give people just little stickers and they go around and they put a sticker where they really like the concept or how something appeals to people. And you get their input and you ask them questions after the process that kind of guides you. We've done charrettes for planning purposes here 3 or 4 times. I know there's been one over at Woodside. I remember one at the old high school. But you have a facilitator at each table that kind of helps people through the process. And generally it's the committee that would get trained by Mark that kind of tell you, this is how you get the input from your community.
Kind of like how we did our focus groups.
Yeah, very similar, only probably a little more personal.
Okay.
Yeah, and more engaging.
Gotcha.
Another thing this group could think about, maybe another thing, but besides, is how we're gonna operate it. I could see a couple of different models. One might be, we increase our parks and rec staff and we run it all in-house. Disadvantage of that is it's gonna increase the cost and maybe make it harder to get people to vote for the final thing. The other thing might be to start reaching out to groups that came to some of the focus groups and say, would you be interested in, say, using the space for programs? So for instance, an example might be People Plus. They might want to do something for elderly folks in the community, and they might say, yeah, we'd be interested in doing 2 or 3 hours a week of this or that. And then that might be that much less that we need to run in-house. Now there might be, there's been talk about some type of facility for teens or someplace they could go after school. The library has a teen librarian. It might make more sense for the town of Topsham just to have one person focused on teens as opposed to having an employee of Parks and Rec employed in the library. So maybe the library would say, we'd like to do, or, have discussions so that they could be part of it. So the facility would obviously be here because they don't have space at the library for a teen center. And maybe we don't necessarily want a full-fledged teen center. Maybe it's certain things. There too, Stacy might be someone I've talked with. Maybe the Bath YMCA that has experience in running a pool, maybe they might say, we'd help with that part in return for. So I guess this group should think about how much we want to try to do everything in-house or how much we want to build the building and maintain it, but programmatically work with other groups. That might be a way to be more effective with it.
The charrette is, I'm not suggesting this, but is there able to be a subgroup of the committee center to be that separate from the committee center?
If you'd like.
And then, well, I'm just saying a way, if we all decide who we'd like to be part of that group, and then that group can help us invite some other people in from maybe previous focus groups.
I can go back in my memory of years ago when she's a senior this year is Josie Hollenbach. I remember Heather Hollenbach and Tom Saucier, who is a consultant that we use as a planner for the town. We're part of a Parks and Recreation master plan group that came about right before the 2008 crisis in finance and all happened. And we started a process of kind of doing a master plan, and then that went away. But there were people in that group that had skills that Tom in particular did pretty well with it and had the ability to. So that we could call upon residents that we have connection to that might be interested in doing that.
And I don't know the experience you had on those, oftentimes what we'll do, sure, and you can define who the statement should be, but oftentimes we invite anyone in the community who wants to learn and participate. Saturday or something, or a day that seems accessible for a lot of people, and whoever shows up, we decide around. Sure.
Correct. But we as committee members are able to be part.
Yes, we would want you to be here.
Cool.
And for those of you who are comfortable, you can guide one of the tables or the groups. Doesn't mean you have to do that, but if you're comfortable, then you could help.
Are there any required interim points to check in with anyone? The process we just did on the first phase was sort of report was presented and then a select board presentation. Is that a similar process we want to follow this time? Well, I'm trying to see if there's anything that gives a natural point to provide an opportunity for input on, but
If there isn't a reason to have come before, say in 6 months.
Yeah.
They kind of like to have those meetings in 6
Give them an
months.
update.
yeah. I'll identify 6 months, check.
But some reason there's a point or need for more.
Miraculously, a donor comes out of the sky.
Right.
No comment.
Well, again, this is our roadmap. This doesn't have to be, cast in stone. We go down this path, we'll have the opportunities to modify it and refine it. So I think that is pretty good. It's not an extensive that then after this, we'll have an idea that if it does go to the voters and the voters do approve going forward, there's a donor that should come forward and we move to the next step. Developing it, then it digs into a lot more detail of developing the plan. All the engineering goes. Questions on any of that?
I just didn't know if maybe 3 and 4 should be swapped. That's in order.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, does the charrette come before we have a site or should it come?
I think we kind of told the select board that we would consider moving forward after our site is selected to make sure that it fits the criteria. That's,
We can definitely can switch those. It'll change a little bit the complexion of the design shred itself. If we have more of it. It's exciting. It actually may make it a little more interesting because then you can really start to think about features of the site.
it just seems like it would kind of be a waste of time if we all plan something beautiful that can't be honest. But like Pam said, coming up with 5 different, models is the way to go anyway.
They would be samples. I'm thinking you had, in the back of my head, I'm thinking about you shared with us from New Hampshire, the design that I've seen that you had for Wyndham before they got a school. Those are 2 that I can think of that you guys had your hands on that are perfect designs that folks here would probably enjoy seeing.
I guess the question is, at what point does the site selection become public so that we can have that conversation? Mark, I don't know if you have a second timing on that.
I'd say once we have the group.
Okay. With the landlord.
Yeah, person, yeah.
So I'll switch those now. Again.
Well, I mean, I do think the charrette should be on our action plan probably right away.
Yeah.
Just to get the ball rolling quicker, sooner than later, and we could still get together and talk about it without site, because it might be a kind of a 2-phase operation anyways.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, again, the design charrette isn't intended to have an outcome where, okay, here it is. The design charrette is to gather a lot of ideas from the community that then influence the design. You never know who has a history of something or knowledge that will influence all of this, and it's always really enriching. You can bring everyone together and share ideas.
Well, there's a similarity to the focus groups we ran. I just feel like if we had a second session of each focus group, it would have been pretty fun. Because we about an hour into them, people started loosening up and really starting to talk and share their feelings. And that's why having a shred sooner than later is probably. But my nomination.
We'll see. Maybe it's
swap those out.
Yeah.
I like round tables. I think.
So,
Talking.
well, and so if we think just in notional terms about when, so the anticipated dates. So again, precedent examples and tours. So precedent examples I can bring to the next meeting. And so this idea of call it meeting number 1 and meeting 1. But then the tours, we've talked, the ones that I've been involved in the past have been Waterville, Portland. I know you folks someone have visited Wiscasset?
Yeah, it's like pulling teeth to get anything out of Dwayne and Wiscasset. I have sent countless, and even what I put in front of you from Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
Lisbon's is an old school that they took over, and Mark has it all in one budget, programs and everything. It's not separate, and so he had a hard time. And I said, well, just give me rough estimates. You think certain things cost. So, and what's in, but he did share what's in community center.
I almost feel like we have to start to put values to it. So we have to start to create a rubric of the sites that we visited. How far are they from Town Hall Topsham? Do they have a pool? Do they have what do they have? So that when we compare it and we come down to these final items, we can say, okay, maybe we're not going to have a rock climbing wall, but there is one in these 3 other community centers that are within a certain number of miles of us. So I almost feel like we have to start to take the all of, like, just make a master list of all of them. And then even if we can't get an official tour, like, we can go in and be like, okay, this one has a pool, this one has a competitive pool, this one has a kitchen, and we can start crossing some of those things off. So we can kind of look at the big picture and see where the gaps, like, we want everything in our community center, but we realistically won't be able to. But if we have that data, every kind of center within a certain radius of us, then we'd have a really good idea of where we need to fill in those gaps.
And we probably have that already, sure.
Yes, I feel like we almost have two projects for the rest of us besides the site location.
Sure.
We have one that has to start developing what the tours are and what's gonna be, how are we gonna track what's in each building? And then we need another group that's kind of working on what a charrette would look like. And then we can combine those two ideas kind of together to say, okay, now invite the town in. Based on this, based on this, based on what we already know is around us, how do we start to develop the building?
Do you know Anthony in South Portland? Know Anthony?
I don't, I met him, I think, when we were doing,
Okay, but I don't have a problem at all. And you have the connection to one. I'm thinking other than that,
I'm trying to think of comprehensive spaces. So what's nice is seeing a space or community center that has a lot of amenities. You can understand, how they're using them and you say, well, that would be nice to have. No, we don't need that. You would to ones that are more limited, you'll see how they've utilized what they have for space. Right now, you're trying to sort of wrap your arms around all the different things you might be able to put. It doesn't mean you have to have them. It'd be nice to see how they have them, how they use them. And
Is it fair to kind of consider Waterville as the grand,
it's
the largest
yeah.
pot, like, and then you can kind of go from there? Seems to have, like, checks all the boxes that we talk to people. The only thing I never saw there was like a stage of some sort.
yeah, yes, correct.
But yeah, there's lots of.
on South Portland, you can see the pool, you can see the gyms, you can see the senior center, you can see the, space of what they have them do. And they've gone through a lot of changes in the last few years. Allison's uncle used to be the assistant director in many years.
Yeah, and one is a municipal facility and one is outside nonprofits.
Yeah, Waterville.
Yeah.
So the water park.
So Waterville, the Waterville Alphon Youth and Recreation, Alphon Youth, I believe it's a family center now, but it's run by the Boys and Girls Club in the water. It is separate. It doesn't have municipal funding. It runs all of its own revenue.
But the city controls water park.
Yes,
The city controls water park and the outdoor facilities, the site.
City built the water money.
City built. But now the city, the Parks and Recreation in Waterville went through a lot of transitions as the Alphonse getting built. And Paul LePage, I think, was the mayor. Yeah, when that all transpired. And the Parks and Recreation Department there is not as anywhere near as big as a lot of other towns because of the Alphonse and because of the partnerships there. So it does outdoor types of things and special events somewhat. But it's not a very big department in comparison to what it once.
Is that good or bad?
Tax wise, it's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole move that was made.
We have kind of a different type of arrangement with the library. We own the facility and the land, and the nonprofit actually runs the library. Town pays 85% of the funding towards it. They fundraise 50%. And anything beyond that, they get to keep.
And the library has a new director, who was actually here the night of our presentation. And we've had some conversations. What Mark's suggestions were about, teen librarian and teen programming and that type of thing. She was very open to those kinds of discussions. She comes from Lewis. So she's very in tune to that type of connection.
So, yeah, so I think, and Allison, I think it was, the homework is that I can again reach out to the folks in Waterville and.
Sure, I know Anthony used to be in Freeport.
And we can set some dates or we'll pass around some dates. And then I'll bring at our next meeting some of the examples. And then conceptual program would be, I'll call it meeting 2. And that's really starting to list again these, but now that we will see examples and we'll have visited, and then the next idea is to then start to distill all that information into and so we'll revisit the list of things that might want to meeting 2. And then the design charrette will be its own sort of event. And so that'll occur somewhere in that time frame, but it won't be a committee meeting. So when I'm putting meetings here, I'm assuming it's awesome. Committee. And so and then the concept meeting 3. Let's change the page. Excuse me, page right here. I can let me increase this for a thing.
Just looking behind your back.
Okay. And then look my concept. And some of these may be different durations between them. And to me. So we've got outlined 8 meetings or so. And again, it may be that some are going to require duration. We'll have, I'm sure, holidays that are going to interrupt some of this and start to get a little bit. So at least we have guiding, engaging when we expect to get things done. Does that feel reasonable right there?
Yeah, we might have to combine some of them if we want to get them done in 6 months.
We just have to be done in 6 months. Just want to
Update.
Come back to this is what we've become.
keep it a year.
And I had a couple and I'm waiting for Kat to ask. When does the conversation of fundraising events for that type of thing, does that happen after the year, you think? Or would it be worthy to the big donor ideas to have our hands around who they might
I think
be?
we don't want to actually be trying to take in any money. So the
Right.
select board have said, yes, let's go ahead.
Moving forward.
Maybe even before the town has voted, let's go
But
ahead.
mine have a.
But there's no reason we can't be planning or thinking about, here's some ways we could raise money, or here's fundraisers, or
Right.
here's thing, or here's what. Or, Mark can give us insights, or should we set up a separate organization to actually collect the money for
Friends up.
fundraising, and there's no reason that, that those discussions can't happen, or the research on the best way to fundraise for it.
And I have a wonderful event for you guys to kind of spread the news that things are Said October 26th, you guys could have your own trunk if you wanted. We're moving the trunkers onto a Saturday night, and it's not on the dance night at the 2 elementary schools. It's on, we listened to the feedback we've gotten the last couple of years, so if you guys wanted to do a booth, then you might all come dressed up. You could do it at the community center and kind of build a small little community center. And you'll get to see Mark dressed
So where is it gonna be?
at the fairground.
Dress up.
That's a great idea.
Question.
He can't, I can share pictures if you really want.
Did my public works traffic.
I saw him in a shirt and tie the other day. I'm good with that. Great. Thank you.
Name is as, Uncle Sam.
Good. I think that gives us a pretty good idea as to what's going on. So our action steps essentially are going to be what Mark just laid out.
And I'll send this to you folks at inclusion in tonight's minutes.
Great. And do we need any help with? Do we have to have information from these buildings, like business plans?
Well, I was hoping, I mean, I was kind of interested in Mark's, Lisbon Falls. He's been there almost as long as I've been here. And they acquired a school 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I think. And just how it's evolved since.
Well,
That's what those notes are.
okay, so this is from a conversation or?
No, he sent me that in an email. I kind of said, don't you have an operational budget? Can't you kind of separate your programming and your operational? And he said, no. And so I kind of think they didn't do it the organized way. They just kind of grew, here's a space. I think that's a good way to say it.
Okay. We'll rely on Waterville and Southport. Just, okay.
Do we want to include this electronic copy with our meeting notes?
I can email.
You can keep it because you post, but I'll make it note.
Power of the internet too, the social media, when I saw somebody post about a question about birthdays over at
Oh,
a pool. And then suddenly there was like 100 people chimed in on a pool and what would make a good pool and the fact that there was a room attached to the pool, so it's pretty wild. Quickly it gets around, especially things like.
I do want to say that I think location is very important because we partnered with Six Rivers this fall to do a yoga in class in the morning for retired people or such. And the location was not, people were not interested in driving out, which is what, a
Mhm.
mile and a half? Out of town to it and different space that they didn't know people. They called, they were interested, Lynn called, was interested, but no, we're gonna try to do another one maybe in October for going into the fall when everybody comes inside and see if we get it again, but we were disappointed with not getting a response. We had a wonderful instructor. It's been well.
I met her too.
Did you, Karen?
We all secretly know what the best is.
Can I just throw something out there that I'm wondering about? With everything that we have coming up that needs to be done, I'm just wondering, especially with the holidays and schools back in session, with everyone's schedule, do we have enough people with enough free time to do what needs to get done in a year's time? Just wondering, just throwing it out there.
I think we need to divide and conquer more than perhaps adding more people, in my opinion. I get what you're saying with that.
Yeah.
But I know I'm a big hindrance to going to the site visits, so.
I wouldn't say hindrance, I mean, I'm just,
No, but I
Yeah.
mean, I know my schedule in the
Limits.
evenings is,
Yeah.
so it limits the availability to
Right.
go tour these places during the day. So I almost feel like we should kind of separate a little bit and then bring the information back to the larger group.
I just think we need to be proactive with everything that's
Yes,
coming down the pike.
agree.
Mhm.
That's a lot of steps.
Yeah, we got our hands.
I would agree.
Just food for thought.
Well, again, as the consultant, my job to do is to help on all those items that my job is to accomplish those with you. So, even the charrette itself, start to do some organization planning around that. That's information I'll come back with, and then, but I'll give all of you more. We organize a report.
That's good. That's what we need. Allegation.
But a lot of, many of the steps are just aspects of planning that happens on our end. But share your information with all of you and get your feedback.
I think this committee is going to want to be ready with either more public assistance or not to start making some hard choices. Because I think if it comes back to the select board as we want it all, or I have a feeling it's going to be harder, or certainly if it goes to town meeting as we want it all. And there's no plan to pay for it beyond taxes, just judging the amount of phone calls we've been getting as people get the bills the past couple days. I think it's going to make it harder to make happen. So I think this group wants to really, as we figure out a site, as we figure out Mark's help, maybe it comes up with, there's actually two things, say, on the vote. And one is the base building with certain things, and then there's an add-on that has certain things in the stretch or something. I think what I've heard from the select board members that are supportive, they absolutely want to make sure that at a minimum, the site you've got is in the building can be expanded. And some may want to go for more upfront, and some maybe want to, but everyone wants to have possibilities. So I think this group wants to now dig in and start kind of fine tuning and try to figure out, okay, where we get the biggest bang for our buck.
Mark, is it usually a pro or con when you start off with one building and then decide to add another entity later? Is that usually a success or a failure?
Yeah, very much a success. I think the idea that if you're careful in planning it, and one idea is to even have a notional idea of what the final state or what a future state looks like, then you can sort of think about breaking it back into small pieces. But even Waterville has grown beyond its original. They thought they had everything, they had a 3-quart gym and a pool, a whole series of meeting spaces, and they've had to grow future as well. So we want to always be thoughtful of that. And in particular, I think the idea is if you try to put forward something that's too large, it may not be successful to begin with. So it's better to start with manageable and then grow from there. Very easy to do. It's always less expensive to do it at one time. However, it may not be affordable. That's
We'd love to see it.
It's my almost 2-year-old grandson.
Oh,
it's very doable and also very helpful to think about it.
My worst nightmare is going to town meeting and have it be voted down. So the smaller amount that they could stomach and vote yes on would be, in my opinion, a great start. Even though I would rather see everything done at once, I just know you have to do it in little bits.
Well, and there's psychology around what you put out for a vote too. So if you put out a single question, people may feel like they have less control over it. And if you put out multiple questions, then they may feel like they have a chance to say, okay, well, I want something, but I don't that much. So there's all psychology as well as financial. If anyone who's voted for schools, part of that, that's probably time for them to have multiple questions.
yeah, and my history with that so far is it would have been much less expensive to address some of the future plans of the building versus. So it's a lot more difficult to make changes sometimes than it is upfront. So we have a lot of, like Mark said, we have a lot of decisions to make. the elephant. You know, makes the most money of all of them. So, recovery costs. All right, can you just let us know what you have down for action steps?
Not very much right now. I have that, we're gonna get the PowerPoint from Markley and we're gonna include that with the meeting notes. And we'll refer back to that as an ongoing live document as we go through the process. I also have a note to include the Lisbon information we have received in our notes. I know that we have written down that we will need to start the process for reviving additional tours with facilities, calling out specifically Waterville and South Portland. And we really need to look into digging into what we want, how we want it, how large we want it, things in the future. Those both feel very general concepts instead of specific things that we need to do before our next meeting.
I think as much as we want to do more, right, I think that's most important.
Yeah.
We need to get the visits out of the way and see what we like out of it. And I think we all, I mean, if only Lynn and Kathy can make it to one time, I'm okay with that. Like, it's fine. We're all the same team, so that would give us something to move forward with.
Well, again, I think we need to also start writing down. I think we also need to be writing down these places and what, checking the box. What do they have? What do they not have? How far are they from the town? Just so we can have.
So whoever goes on this together and check.
I can start with something like
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
that. Sure.
That's awesome. Good.
Put it in the notes.
And your insurance with the fundraiser.
Like, do you want me to help you with that? I was thinking the same thing. We could look at, the information we got from the survey and what people want, make that into two and check off.
What?
Sure, if you want facilities, have based on that list, just note other things that they have.
Yeah, if you want to start on that aspect of it, and I'll start on the, other community centers. Sure. We can, then we can kind of.
Maybe we can carry with us when we go there.
Sound good?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we saw all of Mark's stuff. We need progress during, and in between each meeting.
Just to clarify, are we trying to do tours again, or is this just a thing?
They're all
I've never been to Waterville or I've never set foot on it, so.
And I actually see that.
I helped myself into every room at Waterville. It wasn't an actual bar, but I opened every door. It's pretty wild. There's rooms and then there's rooms after rooms, and this place has it all. So it is worth people to see what kind of the top of the line kind of community center is compared to what actually works.
I guess that leads to my next question, which would be, are one of us going to be coordinating the dates, or should we partner up? Okay.
Mark's gonna be in charge of South Portland. I mean, Waterville.
You and I can work together and figure that out.
And figure out the dates. Okay.
But it will not just those two, though. We're trying to see more than just those two. Well,
I might have a contact. Yeah, I might be able to reach out. to Somebody who was,
That's a relatively new business.
yeah.
Are you talking about? Okay, all right, yeah.
we also got a lot of pictures of the Y Community Center from somebody that attended the focus groups. So we have that saved somewhere.
And there's also the back one.
It should be included on the list. As well.
You know that.
Yes. I think making the list of what you would say.
Knock it out the park. Great. Good. And a review minutes from the 19th.
I move we accept.
Anyone put together on the next meeting time?
In the event that we want to meet in October, the absentee voting is gonna be in this room. Will be upstairs. For the month of October. 14th is a holiday. The 21st. Or the 28th.
I'm not here the week of the 21st through the 26th. If it's that week, somebody else.
And I have to beg pardon that I am at a dance for on the 21st. I won't be here either. If we can do it. Other people want to do it, it's not just
I have to go to 28.
I'm good with the 28th.
the 28th.
Good, I'm gone the first 2 weeks, so give me a little more time to prep. for
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Is this a good
exactly. This is a good one. This is on my wife's bucket.
Good for you.
A good bucket.
Oh,
I want
oh,
you to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pictures. We're going to Maui. I've never been, it's not on my list, but if I want to get to my list, I figured this would be the way to do it. Yeah.
So we're talking the 28th.
It's 5:15, I'm assuming.
So that would be
That
upstairs.
basketball season starts.
Did you say upstairs or?
Yes, the upstairs.
Actually, I'll say probably, by the 28th, we may have ended early voting, so it'll be somewhere in this building. Because I think it ends a week before the.
And so just tentatively for that meeting, we'll talk, I'll bring material about precedents. And we'll also, I think, probably have some information about that point. I think that's probably that point. And then we'll start thinking about the partition of the design short, start thinking about dates for it and what we need to do for it. Great.
Can we adjourn this meeting at 6:14? Do we have to accept it? Yeah.
Usually you vote, but I mean,
I think we should go to 6:17 because that's, yeah.
You want to talk about?
did you want to do an executive session to talk about the sites for a few minutes?
Yes.
Yes, but that's all. We adjourn this first, don't we?
Right.
We have to
Yeah,
vote
so we don't have to sit and wait to kill time.
That's what I'm saying. Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
And go
Second.
into executive session.
And go into executive.
So Leslie, we'll keep you on, but I'm gonna end the recording.